I think we have to accept and acknowledge that to remain and continue in the meeting. So welcome everyone to our 7th of 8 SDP Q&A sessions, the 5 o'clock evening session of success stories, which we were able to hear at noon today from Joyce McNair, mother of Robin, a successful SDP participant. Jennifer Stratton joins us for this hour. She wasn't with us at noon, so we'll get a fresh account of her experience with the self-determination program. In previous sessions, there's been a kind of a specific topic that we focused on, lending itself to sort of more of a formal presentation of information, whereas these, I found the noon session incredibly helpful, interesting, informative, less structured, a little more dependent, reliant on question and answer, what's of interest to people. But our pioneers, trailblazers of the program who are with us today can certainly begin by sharing a little bit about their experience, what drew them to self-determination, what challenges they encountered, even though we're focusing on success stories. Always nice to learn from others' experiences, sharing things they wish they had known at the time, and giving us a glimpse into what life looks like now that their services are being provided in this new delivery model. That said, I'll begin with some introductions. We have with us Joyce McNair. If you'd like to unmute and say hello, Joyce.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, and welcome back. Thanks for doing this twice. And Jennifer Stratton, who was, oh, there she is.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. So Joyce, since you've been around, you did this at the noon hour, would you mind sharing with this group a little bit about what drew Robin, you and your family to the SDP model of service delivery?
Okay, sure. Wait just a minute here. No, I'm unmuted. Okay. As I said this morning or early this afternoon, I actually heard about the SDP program, the self-determination program, about 7 years ago, and immediately was drawn to the concept of self-determination. And I talked about it with Robin. And when the opportunity came for her to actually be not only on the list, but also accepted as a participant, of course, she wanted to do it, and I certainly wanted her to do it. I did act as her informal independent facilitator, and I did that with her goals in mind. As I explained earlier, Robin wrote her goals back in early March before we were in the shutdown, and I followed pretty much everything that she wanted to achieve in her plan, in her goals and plans. The way I went about doing this was to first set up a service plan for her based on her goals. And the service plan was divided into long-term goals, ongoing goals, short-term goals, and as needed support, which is support that she might need in the future. So using her goals, the way she created them, we sat down, she had paper and pencil or pen, and I would ask her certain questions. And the first question is, what do you want to do in the future? So she took a whole page to write that out. And the second question I asked her is, what is going on in your life now? What are you doing now? And she wrote down what she was doing now and what kinds of services that she was getting. So then I wanted to know from her, what do you want to, what would you consider a success if you were able to do it now, if you had the kind of support that you would like? So she told me, and she wrote down another page. And it ended up with, there were 5 pages, all handwritten. And that's basically what I followed. And her ongoing goals were, if you don't mind, I can share a little bit of it, is to manage her spending so that eventually she may become her own payee. The second part of that is make more friends. The third part is to prepare meals, which meant expanding the kinds of things she can do right now and not just eating, healthy frozen dinners and easy stuff, which she's doing now. Also, she wanted to know more about safety measures, and I suggested strengthening her housekeeping skills, and she thought that was a good idea too. So those were the ongoing goals. The short-term goal was finding affordable housing. She's already living in affordable housing, but in case she wants to move, she wants some options. And the as-needed support is if I'm not available, she might want somebody to help her with her grocery shopping, because she's now buying her groceries, most of them at the beginning of the month. And I help her, get them into her apartment. And depending on where she's living, she might need to be transported, because a lot of things that she does are in Elk Grove, even though she lives in Sacramento, and paratransit does not serve Elk Grove. And the other thing that I thought was extremely important was for her to have someone to help her with her periodic benefits recertification assistance in case I am not able to be there to help her do that. That to me was a critical component. So as far as successes and how we got the service providers, fortunately, under the traditional system, she was with a very good agency, an ILS agency, and the instructor that she had was very good, very thorough. So what it meant, though, was for her instructor to understand the difference between her role as a service provider under the traditional services and how that would change under self-determination. And so, and what that meant was the things that her agency wanted her to do with Robin, a lot of that Robin didn't want to do. So based on Robin's plan and goals, her instructor understood that, okay, this is the way I'm going to have to operate. And that took a little trial and error there, but eventually we got to the point where she understood that this is Robin now. This is not your boss, your supervisor saying you got to do this way. Okay, that I think that's a critical point. I didn't mention that this morning, but that is something that you really do have to make very clear if you're using a vendored service provider, that under self-determination, you're running the show. The client is running the show. The participant is deciding how she wants to work, what she wants to learn, what pace she wants to learn, all of those things. And Robin's goal, her long-term goal, is to be a makeup artist. And she does not want to do it in a classroom setting. She does not like classes. She wants to do it informally. And so her instructor has, figured out ways on Zoom that they can check in on how people do makeup, different ethnic groups do makeup. And once the stores really open up, she may be able to go to a store where they do makeup demonstrations and observe those. But anyway, whatever it is, it would be done very informally. And she asked me if she could make me up and maybe some of her friends. And I Said, yeah, we'll do that. But anyway, that's it in a nutshell. And it's going very well.
Thank you, Joyce. I did hear on the news with mask mandates being lifted in certain areas that lipstick sales have skyrocketed. I haven't invested in it. I should have bought stock.
She's been buying lipstick all along.
Oh, that she's great at knowing how to apply it properly.
Yes.
Wow. And Daniel has joined us. Thank you, Daniel. He's going to be.
It's like an issue to join. So I type my name real fast, so if it don't say Meadows, that's why. I just wanted to get in.
All right. Yeah, Daniel Meadows is with us. And Daniel, I'm going to go ahead and let Jennifer share her experience, a little information about her journey.
Okay.
And then we'll circle back for you, and then we'll open it up to questions.
Okay, sounds good.
Appreciate it. So Jennifer, sort of the same open-ended question to you, kind of what drew you to self-determination? What did you learn along the way that you wish you knew beforehand that you know now? And what does life look like for you now that you're no longer in the traditional service delivery, but getting your services in a more creative way?
Hi, my name is Jennifer, and I joined the STP last year after I got picked 3 years ago. And I like being in the STP because I could pick my own services, pick the people that can support me that I like, and to just live my life as I choose to be. I like being an STP because I want to reach my goal to be independent and to live on my own. I think I'm done.
All right, thank you. I'm sure there might be some follow-up questions as far as what types of supports you chose. And you said something that I think is really important about the SDP program is being able to choose the people to work with who you get along with, who meet your specific needs. Sometimes in the traditional service delivery, when you're getting services through a vendor, it's their staff, their employees. So you might be stuck in kind of a limited selection of staff. So you've been able to branch out and find someone who you enjoy working with and connect with. Daniel, kind of the same sort of introductory, just so folks get a sense of what SDP was like for you. What drew you to it? What did you learn along the way that you wish you had known in advance? And how are things looking for you now?
That question to me?
Yes, please.
If people are freezing in and out on my computers, I don't know who was saying what. I think what drew me is basically I wanted to control my services. And one thing in traditional services, it's very hard to get control of the service. You one size base it fit all, and I was concerned about that. And they had an opportunity and said, "You hire your own staff. This is great." So I choose not to go traditional program because at that my budget seemed like a lot of money was going towards the program itself. So I choose to hire out and hire the people who's already been working with me. So it's not like they didn't know me. I didn't start over. My job coach retired, so I was able to retain his services because of the program. And he knew about the program. He actually attended the workshops with me, so he actually knew what the program was about. And it just worked out for things to fall in place. The struggles have been COVID, actually managing staff during COVID, but we've been able to meet over Zoom. And now the math thing, they probably lifted a little bit. We're going to start meeting in person where we can actually do some structured work in person.
Great.
All right. You convinced someone to come out of retirement.
Yeah, I did.
So you liked them and they must have liked you also.
They did.
That's a good relationship to build on. And based on all the great questions we had at the noon hour, I could probably prompt and extract some more stories and information from each of you, but I'm curious as to what our evening participants are curious to learn more about and hear from you. So we'll open it up at this point to question and answer, and people can type in the chat if they prefer to have their question acknowledged in that manner. If people want to raise their hands, I'll make sure they're acknowledged, or in a group this size, 18 participants, I'd say feel free to unmute your microphone and ask the question to one or all three of our distinguished guest speakers today. And Karen's got her hand raised, so I'll give the floor to you for your questions.
Well, thanks to all three of you for sharing your experiences. And I'm interested in maybe some more stories about how you had to kind of train your existing service providers about self-determination, and how, whether it's a service provider or the staff that used to work for a service provider, what have they told you that they think about working under self-determination as opposed to, you know, working under the prior model?
Interesting.
I think with me, like I said earlier, staff already working with me, but having them attend the meetings, I think, was very important, because that way they follow past all the way. And the scary part was, I'm gonna have staff take for their program, so that's really scary for the program. The program saying no, he's not gonna do that, you know. But I did it, and it's working.
Well, for me, for working on behalf of Robin, I actually had to explain to the executive director of the agency some details about self-determination to make sure that he was agreeable to working with Robin as a self-determination client. And you know, it took a little bit of convincing. I was trying to explain to him the benefits for him, which I hope are true, that, you know, there actually would be less reporting that he has to do now for each client. And also the flexibility, of course, for the client, which means that whoever is the instructor would also have more flexibility. So what I did with her instructor, who she'd had under the traditional program, is I actually sent her a copy of the PowerPoint in plain language of the self-determination program. She's really very sharp. And she, of course, you know, it's one thing to read it, but to see it in action, though, is a bit different. So she had to unlearn some of the things that she was doing. Because, you know, in their agency, they have a list of things that they want each ILS instructor to do. you know, and I actually looked at some of them, and some of them were good. They had some good things there, and I included them in the language that Robin, you know, that it covered the things that Robin wanted under her goals. But what they wanted was a lot more than what Robin wanted. So we just didn't do any of those. But yeah, so, and then once Robin was working with Kelly under the self-determination program, her instructor is really very, she wants to do everything she can for Robin. And so she was doing it a little bit too fast. And so we had to have a conversation about, okay, you can slow down now. You know, this is self-determination, because Robin didn't want to tell her herself, hey, you're going too fast. So we had a good conversation about that. And that's what she's done. She's just slowed down. And now things are going very smoothly.
Thank you, Joyce. And Jennifer, did you have any experience with training staff, providing information, people that are working with you now that might have come from the traditional service delivery model, where there might have been some habits or rituals that needed some?
No.
No? Okay. All right.
Okay.
Daniel, I'm curious, you shared about in the noon hour, the development of your person-centered plan, and you did that yourself with some input from other people. Other people had written stuff down, came across your, eyes to edit and finalize. And you said they were people who knew you well, who came up with some suggestions for life goals and plans for you that you might not have even thought of before. I'm curious, was the individual that you're now working with in the capacity of the former job coach who came out of retirement, was he someone who knew you well and helped you with developing that person-centered plan?
He was one that attended actually most of the trainings. So he knew about the project itself. So it kind of helped out. So I didn't have to train him about the project. He already knew about it. As far as the goals that people signed up on me, it was happened to be in a training, and I happened to be the guinea pig. They were picking up. And they were all kinds of things about me. These were people who knew me for years. They were all kinds of things about me, and I'm going, okay, I can use that. I can use that. I can use that. So it became part of my plan.
Thank you. Again, I know in the noon hour, there were people curious, kind of getting deep into the weeds of what life and self-determination is like, kind of on a day-to-day with time cards and things of that nature, whose responsibility it is, whose eyes those cross, who signs off on it. And Daniel, you shared that being kind of one of the successes of your experience. Would you care to recount that for folks?
Yeah, I
Oh, and
the one who signed off on it. And it's kind of cool. It's like trying to my phone. So I don't have to go on a computer and actually type stuff in. So that I can just pull it up on my phone, sign from my phone. So that makes it easy for me. But however they choose to sign in, I just work with them. And the one that likes the computer, he does everything on my computer. So it works out for him. And I like it because the program worked out. Hey, I download this app and you can do it from your phone. And so it works for me.
Daniel, I think one of the things you said in the other meeting, which I was really impressed with, was that you like to look line by line to make sure that you're understanding what was going on. And I think that, am I right in thinking that SDP gives you the chance to kind of be that boss of your own life and make sure that you have that you have a say in what's going on and that you know what's going on in your life.
Yes, it does, because I actually, line by line, so I know exactly what I'm getting. And so the traditional services, I saw it, but I didn't understand it. It was like this whole spreadsheet that basically can understand. So I find it better to understand now. Because I can go line by line and say, okay, this person working with this hour, how many hours they clock in, clock in, how many hours in. And being my own boss over my staff, I know exactly how many hours that they put in, because I'm the one that said you can wait too many hours with me. So, so I think that works out, knowing that what people are doing.
I like that a lot.
Okay, we have a question in chat that gets a little pointed in terms of describing exactly what the services you're receiving look like, what it is you're doing now in SDP. So what types of things are you doing that you chose for yourself in SDP? And Jennifer, can we start with you?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm doing UBO to get to work, job coaching, and ILS services.
Okay, and I heard one of the reasons we weren't able to enjoy your company at the noon hour was because you were busy working. Can you share? I don't know what your job is. Can you share with us what you're doing for work?
I'm working at Safeway, but this job is just temporary until I reach my long-term goal to work for the state.
Okay. All right. And I see Karen's raised her hand, but I'm going to allow Daniel an opportunity to share specifically what types of things he's doing and services and supports he's receiving now in self-determination.
I think the difference is, Ben, I actually could structure what PRP worked for me. So I didn't have that structure at first. And part of what I'm doing is actually do my hands-on with my job coach. That I have a job, I'm an advisor to People First Group. So I give advice to the group. And some of the things is that just one guy actually does minutes, but when you read his minutes, you can't read them. So my job coach and I would sit down, we get able to translate that, what he's saying, and able to work that. Traditional program is like, oh, I don't have that much time, let's get it over with. They're not paying me enough to do this. And so I was able to say, let's sit down and let's work out a plan. And what kind of plan that works best for you. And that's why how I follow up staff is asking what works best for you. And then it actually helped them understand how to work with me.
Thank you, Daniel. And I see a hand up and a new question in chat. I'm going to go with the hand first because we can always come back to the chat. So Karen, did you have another question? Karen, you're on mute.
Yeah, one of my questions was actually what was the same as the one in chat, which is what is the time frame from the start of initiating working on the self-determination program to flipping the switch and turning on your services under self-determination. And then a special question for Joyce, which is, Joyce, how did you end up implementing, how did you and Robin end up implementing the need for somebody to do all the paperwork associated with benefits, which can be enormous. So those are my two questions. Thanks.
Okay, well, I'm going to answer that question That's something want to have available for the future. And so the answer to that is I'm still trying to figure out who or what agency can actually do that. Because to me, that's critical. Yeah. If anybody has any ideas, please let me know.
And that's ideas for who can coordinate benefits for the.
Yeah, she has about 7 things that have to be recertified. Not all of them are annual, but the annual ones are the the housing authority, because she has a housing choice voucher, and the transportation that requires an annual recertification. She can answer some of the questions, but some of the questions she needs some assistance. Now with her Social Security benefits, which are she's adult disabled child Social Security and also SSI. That it used to be every 6 or 7 years, and now they're just requiring, they just want to know information about, has she seen her counselor in the last 6 months? But that could change, and it could be something that is very complicated and multi-pages. I've had to do this for one of my other children. It's a complicated process, and it would need someone who has, either some experience or has the patience to do that. Yeah.
Well, I can vouch for that. I mean, we had a 300-page audit that we had to turn in to Social Security for her SSI benefit, my daughter's SSI benefit last year. And even though, and that was only for CalFresh expenditures and for any able account expenditures. So the paperwork burden is quite significant, especially given that every time a benefit changes in any way, you have to report that to every source of income or benefit. And so it's an ongoing burden. And I'm not sure that there are any service providers currently set up for that.
Yeah.
And I completely misinterpreted that question. I thought you were talking about staff benefits of people brought on board. You were talking about Robin as the participant, her benefits.
Yeah.
I caught on there eventually.
I knew what Joyce was talking about.
Joyce knew what you were talking. That's the important thing. She was the one answering the question. And then your first question related to timeline, which also coincided with the one in the chat. And maybe Daniel, could we have you take this one first?
Timeline,
yeah.
I think I took my time, because it's like I said earlier, if you rush through the process, you really can't get the benefit of it. I just choose. It took a year, and took a year for my case manager to learn what it is. It took me a year for me to learn what it is, because it was new to her. And so it took that process, and after the year, we finally flipped the switch. It was like, wow, we're ready for it now. So I think that's important, is taking your time. I found out this, I know a friend of mine's actually, he hasn't really started the program yet. And we got the right timing together. So it's supporting him to say, okay, how does the support you get started? So.
Thank you, Daniel. And Jennifer, could you share the approximate time frame that you experienced in going through the process from kind of start to end? And if you felt like you hit any barriers along the way, what put things on pause, your experience?
Yeah. I started in March of last year, and I flipped the switch in October of last year.
7 months.
It took me about 7 months, and then I flipped the switch to become a SDP.
Okay.
Thank you, Jennifer. And Joyce, your timeline?
Okay, actually, let's see, Robin and I went to her orientation in February of 2020. In early March, she completed her goals. Also in March, the shutdown began. So from March until August, we did not do anything about self-determination. We started again in August, and the switch was flipped. She became officially a participant in the self-determination program January 1, 2021. And I have to say that the part that I did and the service coordinator, that took about 2 months. But a lot of time was spent with the budget process. And we waited a lot. A lot of that 5 months was just waiting to get something done in that. I don't quite understand that process fully yet, but it was also the FMS portion of it and the accounting department portion. But because I think we could have had it done probably by the end of October.
Then we have another question in chat. Did anyone use a person-centered planner? And if so, what was your experience? And we'll begin with Jennifer. Jennifer, did you take advantage of someone who was a quote unquote professional person-centered planner, someone vendored, someone who developed a person-centered plan on your behalf or with you?
Yes, I use Rachel from PEC to help me with my person-centered plan and to get me ready for STP.
And could you share a little bit about what your experience was like working with her?
My experience was good, and we got a lot of stuff done, and we work every day, and she is nice, and we got a lot of stuff done together.
Thank you. And I actually know from the noon hour, but I'm going to let you respond to the question. Daniel, did you use a person-centered planner?
Actually, I was part of training the person planners. So I did not use them. But having them actually be a part of the process with me, those who knew me, I think it did help out.
Thank you for sharing that information. And Joyce?
Well, as I said before, Robin wrote her own plan.
Right.
I just asked questions.
That's all right.
Yeah, I can't remember if you mentioned it this time. You described yourself sort of as the informal volunteer independent facilitator
Yes.
In that role, in that capacity, which I think
Yes.
is, in addition to being mom, another hat that you wore and took
Right.
on that role.
Right. Mhm. And I think a lot of moms are going to do that.
My mom's my independent facilitator.
Still?
Still, yeah. Continual guidance. You
Well,
can't
I have to
replace
say,
it.
I do kind of do that with all three of my children.
Yeah. We've got a question in chat. I understand that it can be helpful to choose your FMS provider early so they can help in the process. Did that help you? And why don't we begin with Jennifer? Maybe if you could share at what point in the process you decided on your FMS and were they support throughout the remainder of the process?
Starting last year, around May, I've been emailing a lot of FMS. And the one that I like is GT Independent.
Mhm.
Because I like the communication and GT Independent work as a team with me to get my budget done to send over to my auto worker. Done.
Okay, so you said emails beginning in May with GT, and if I remember, you started in March, flipped the switch in October, so it's about 2 months in. Is that about the right timeline of when the FMS came into the picture?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Just want to make sure I had that right in my head. And Daniel, same question to you. And Jennifer shared which FMS agency she selected. There's sort of a follow-up question that if you want to share which FMS agency you chose.
I chose all DT Independent. But I think what helped, they did a mock budget for me. So based on what I got this expenditure plans, here's what you spend over the period of time. So they did a mock budget and saying, if it looks like you want this, here's how much it's going to cost you. And then that was submitted. So it became my budget. So I think having that personal plan, sitting down with the plan at that time really helped get a budget, because I could see a budget summary of what it was going to look like.
I have to say, I didn't have quite that experience. Yeah. So I like what I'm hearing about GT Independence, though.
Well, can you elaborate, Joyce?
Well, let me see. I'm trying to do this in a diplomatic way. The agency is a much larger agency, and I understand that the person who I work with personally has about 100 clients. So when I email her, she always responds, but not right away, because she's got a large caseload. So when I did need some real help learning how to access the monthly report, we did have a Zoom meeting, she and I, and she went through it with me step by step. It was a very complicated procedure, quite frankly. So those are things that probably need looking at. The issue of having that many clients is something that needs to be looked at. So, I don't really need that much attention, for Robin. She's basically getting one service, and then she has one other a line item for some equipment, which we haven't done anything about yet. But hers is a very simple, case. So it's something to think about.
Thank you. That's actually really helpful to know. It's good information to know that you should ask the FMS, how many other clients is my caseworker going to have, and what should I be expecting, and maybe what do your monthly reports look like, and what's the format, how am I going to access? I never would have thought to ask those questions.
Right.
Right.
I certainly didn't. So, yeah. I didn't really have a choice, because at the time that I looked for the FMS providers in the area for Alta, there were only 4. I contacted all 4 of them. 2 of them didn't respond at all. The one who did respond said that she was not accepting new clients for very good reasons. And so I kind of had to take what was left.
Uh-huh.
I did a lot of interviewing. I really asked them a lot of questions. Met with the director of the program, asked him a lot of questions, and it just helped out that I could ask a lot of questions and get some clarity, some answers.
Mhm. Sounds good to me.
We've got another question in chat. Unless Jennifer, you wanted to share any additional information about the process in selecting your FMS agency, what types of things were important to you?
The only ones it's important to me is communication and that all.
Thank you. So the question in the chat is, did anyone end up using a provider who was vendored with the regional center? And I know, Daniel, you shared yours was sort of retired, but I'm not sure if you're still, because I know you said you're using the bill payer model, meaning you're paying an agency that employs people. Is that agency a regional center vendor?
It's vended by regional center, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then the follow-up question, and thank you for clarifying that, is how did that rate negotiation go? Because Alta obviously has the rate that they agree to pay that vendor for their vendored services, and then you decide you're going to use them a little differently, creatively, flexible to meet your needs, but we're still using someone who has an existing relationship with Alta. How did you guys negotiate a rate?
Well, they agreed to take the state rate. So they agreed that here's what we get paid. So there was no adjustment because they say, here's a flat rate that we get paid. And they just worked out by getting a flat rate. So I didn't have to negotiate any other thing but the flat rate that they were currently getting.
Could you share, was that like an hourly, daily, or a monthly rate?
It's a monthly rate.
A monthly, okay,
Yes.
gotcha. So you end up paying essentially the same dollar amount for the service that the regional center had been paying the vendor. Is that my understanding? Did I?
Well, I have no vendors at all. So, but the actual FMN independent, GT independent, we just kind of negotiated the rate that they said, here's the flat rate the state said we can base it on, here's the flat rate the state said we can take. So it actually just worked out saying, okay, let's take that flat rate and make that your rate. So the monthly rate automatically. So they gave me a rate, and it was low enough that it could fit my budget.
Okay. And Jennifer, did you end up with your current spending plan purchasing services from any individuals or organizations that were vendored with the regional center?
Yes. Yes, I did.
Okay. And then in having conversations with them about what you were going to agree to pay them as their new employer, or actually, I should ask, did you go the bill payer model or co-employer or sole employer model of an FMS agency?
Right now I am in the bill payer, but I'm gonna transfer into the co-employer so I could hire my own staff to work on my center.
Okay. So if you're at present in the bill payer model, you're paying an agency that then pays their employees. And did you have to negotiate a rate with them, or was it a rate that was established that they shared with you? This is what we charge. And
No, 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 I make my own rate. I pay them more
Mhm.
to get the best services.
Right. Mhm.
I
But
think,
yeah, but right now I'm gonna transfer into co-appointment so I can hire my my own staff to support me.
Right. I actually hire my own staff, so so I hire my own staff, and they said, here you can hire your own staff. So it wasn't an agency picked them. I picked the staff and said, here's who I want to work with. And so they kind of said, okay, let's help you work with them. And that's basically what I'm doing. And so I didn't have to go out and choose the traditional model. They were willing to work with me to hire my own staff.
yeah. Thank you. And before I lose track of questions in the chat, there's one specific to Daniel, having enough money in your budget to pay the vendor the same amount. So if you were paying the established rate, how did you find the money in your budget then to pay the FMS agency, which is a required POS, use of a regional center vendored service?
Well, it's taken out. I took out the excess fat, basically. And the agency, like I said earlier, the agency took a lot of money. And when I looked at that line by line, I really recognized that I can pay outside agency. If I didn't choose the agency itself, I can actually pay more. So it just kind of worked out that way.
All right. And I want to give Joyce an opportunity to share, because I know from her account, this in terms of rate negotiation, which seemed to be the topic we were discussing. Joyce, you want to share what your experience was?
Sure. Yes, I actually did negotiate with the executive director for an hourly rate that was higher because I wanted the instructor to get more per hour. And I also wanted the agency to get more. I really wanted the agency to want to be a part of the self-determination program. So to me, that was a benefit to be able to do that, to negotiate a higher. It wasn't that much higher, but it was higher than what they had been receiving.
Well, I'm sure that direct care staff professional appreciates that advocacy on your part, and the financial compensation. There's a question, other than the length of the process to create the budget, were there any other drawbacks that you can share, or anything else that interested parties might prepare for?
I can't think of anything else.
I think is not having my staff involved with me would have been a drawback, because I think having that, but also the drawback, because I said earlier, the case management learning as I'm learning, so it was a challenge for her, because she said, I'm learning. Okay, let me talk to my supervisor and see what we can do. So it was a lot of that. So it made the process probably go a little bit longer than it should be, but she's still learning as she goes.
Sure.
Yeah, you guys were leading the way during a new time that had the added difficulty of a global pandemic shutting things down. So thank you for your bravery and courage and trying something new and making it work.
Mhm.
Jennifer, did you want to add anything?
No, I just like being in SDP because I could choose whoever I want with the people tell me what to do, and I could hire the staff that I like to work with, not what people put me with.
And I have to add that that's what Robin has said to me too. She really likes self-determination.
Mhm.
Excellent. So we are actually close to the 6 o'clock hour. And as I did at the noon hour, I'll just share that this was our 7th of 8 scheduled Q&A sessions. 2 weeks from now, we'll be looking at kind of a global overview, open-ended question and answer. There's no designated topic, so it's come with any and all questions, and we'll hope to have any and all answers for those questions. And as these scheduled sessions come to a close, if anyone has any ideas or suggestions about topics, I don't know that we do repeat performances of previous topics, given that we have recordings. We'll certainly be continually updating our website with information and resources, working collaboratively with our local advisory committee on developing resources and means of communicating information to the community. But welcome any input from this group.
Herman, this is Jen. I'd just like to thank everybody for participating, and we see a lot of the same friendly, familiar faces, and we appreciate your loyalty and your commitment to learning more, and we're all learning from each other. So just a big thank you to all.
You're welcome.
Mhm.
Yeah. And a special thanks to our guest presenters, speakers, Jennifer, Daniel, and Joyce. Really appreciate you again, being trailblazers in this program and sharing your experience and being here to answer questions for us.
My pleasure.
Enjoyed it.
Mhm.
Thank you.